What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for March 25th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. We have a fun, big show today. It is 2 days from Phillies opening day. I have half of my 10 bold predictions for the seasons we'll get to, but it is Tuesday, and like we always do on Tuesday, it's time for a little motivation/positivity. And today, we're going to go to our old pal BG, retired last week, and during his final press conference, said one of the things that really helped him, especially in his career, was this quote, something he tells the younger guys, it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. Obviously, somebody else had said that before, but in honor of BG, who just retired and said this at his introductory press conference, that is our quote for this week. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And obviously, there is a ton of sports references in this. I mean, you look at Brandon Graham's career, labeled a bust, came back to be one of the best Eagles ever. 2 Super Bowl titles, longest tenured Eagle, all of the other stuff. We know that. I mean, look at last year's Eagles season. Started off 2-2, went on to win the Super Bowl. I mentioned the Phillies in their opening day. Look at what happened last year, that hot start and how they finished. Nobody really talks or remembers what happened in the beginning of the season. Everybody talks about the 500 down the stretch and losing to the Mets. So it really is not how you start, but how you finish. But going beyond sports, it's the same as in life. And I think what you can take away from this is keep your focus on what your goal is. And know that along the way, there's going to be setbacks, roadblocks, detours you have to take. But keep your eye on that goal, because no matter how you start, it's all about how you finish, and finish that job good. Finish it well. Whatever you're doing, finish it well. And I also think that we can take away from that, it's never too late to start something, whether that be a hobby, looking for a new job, a workout routine, getting healthy, being a better person, being a better spouse, being a better parent. It's never too late to start, because it doesn't matter how you start something, it's how you finish. So finish out strong, and even if you're feeling down or like you can't complete whatever it is you're trying to do, there's still time to finish the job and finish it strong. So BG, we salute you one last time. It's not how you start, it's how you finish in sports and in life. And just remember, it's not too late to get that strong finish in. So hopefully, as you go through your weeks, that's something you can take with you. All right, some quick housekeeping notes before we get into the episode. Yesterday, if you are someone who normally listens on Apple, there was somehow, I'm not sure how the wires got crossed, but Friday's episode was originally posted, but it was posted with Monday's description, and then I went and tried to fix it, and Apple is not the easiest to deal with. It had yesterday's episode with Friday's description, so I'm not sure what's going on with Apple, but I apologize for any confusion. If you ever run into an issue like that, you can always shoot over to Spotify or YouTube and get the podcast as well. I always say I like to make sure everything is accurate. I mistakenly said, this is a minor one, but I mistakenly said that Penn took third in the country in 1979. They, in fact, took fourth because they lost that consolation game. So just a little slip of the tongue by me. Also, remember, if you want to see some highlights, photos, newspaper clippings from whatever our This Day in Philly Sports History is that day, go to any of my social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, on Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Facebook, I'm on. LinkedIn, I post stuff, and it gives you some of the highlights. So I had some highlights from that Penn-Michigan State game yesterday on my social media. Still not sure I want to mess with the whole YouTube because they're very strict and tough with some of the copyright. Not that I think I'm violating it. I've talked to some people in copyright law, and it's a gray area. But as a podcast that sort of reports the news, even though it's news from the past, I think I fall under fair use. But either way, If you go to my social media, you're able to see some of those things. And then subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and talk about being in the zone. Jimbo_Mont on YouTube, continually growing here on YouTube. I'm in the process of doing some things to kind of expand my reach on YouTube, and it seems to be somewhat working. So if you're a new listener, new watcher, welcome and thank you for your support. Continue to spread the word. That's the best way to grow this thing, is just spread the word and let other people know what you're doing. And then be sure to check out Lenny Wagner. Everything you need is in the description. He's the author of Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Age of Sports. The story of Walter French, and just his story is amazing. I sat down with Lenny last week. I'm in the process of editing some of the clips. Full disclosure, complete amateur hour on my part. Had some issues with Zoom. The actual player kept crashing, so I had to go on the web base, recorded it because I couldn't find the record button. None of the audio from me recorded, so it's just Lenny talking. So I'm trying to figure out the way and editing that. So, but he did a great job sitting down with him, telling Walter French's story. And again, he was a pro baseball player, pro football player, played basketball in college. We talked about that. Won a World Series with the A's when they were in Philly. Also with the NFL championship with the Pottsville Maroons that was later suspended and vacated by the NFL. We'll get all into that starting April 1st when I put together the package with Lenny talking about Walter. But the Phillies could certainly use a guy like Lenny or Walter French at the top of the order this year. Career .303 average, had speed in the outfield, and again, he would be the perfect leadoff hitter. But more on that as we get into the show. But Lenny will be doing a presentation and book signing April 8th. All the details are in the description, and I'm looking forward to being able to present Walter's story to you guys starting April 1st. All right, let's recap yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, in honor of Penn making the run to the Final Four in 1979, would or can an Ivy League team ever make a Final Four run again? 56% of you said no. Some of the comments were very interesting on this. Bill from Flowertown, he said, all you need is one stud and some guys that can shoot and then hope you get hot. Dave from Scranton definitely could. He was like, it all comes down to the money. But the interesting thing about the money is that Penn did not join the class action settlement against the NCAA. So they're technically not allowed to pay. The Ivy League schools are not allowed to pay their players the way the other schools do. They wanted to keep it more academic based and things like that, which is something that could, I guess, theoretically hurt them when it comes to recruiting. But it is an interesting thing. I think you really could, if you get the right guys in there, any team can go on a run. It's just that the deck is going to be stacked against you. I saw a stat that of the teams in the Sweet 16, only 4 conferences are represented, and they're the Big Four, which kind of tells you all you need to know about the landscape of college sports. But again, who knows? You could get a Cinderella team in there to make a run. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. There will be another one later in the show. All right, Sixers. Good loss again last night, 112-99. This looked like a process team, though. Nobody really Yabusele played. But other than that, it's just guys that they're playing out the string. They're still tied for that 5th spot with the Nets, who also keep on losing. The Nets are going to be a problem here because theoretically, as long as they get to the 6th spot, you're okay. But there's a better shot that you get bumped out the lower you are. So we want to try to get the Sixers up as high as you can. Flyers back in action tonight in Toronto. They also are currently tied for the 5th lottery position in the NHL. I mean, that's it. That's the winter sports coverage for for our teams. We're here rooting for losses. So 10 more games left, I think, for both teams. I think the Flyers have 11, but 10 more, and then we can finally put this season out of its misery. All right, some Phillies news. And spring training is over. The team is back in Philadelphia. Some roster moves from yesterday. Cody Clemens did get the final bench spot, so he will start the season with the big club. Excuse me. Matt Strahm was supposed to pitch, but was scratched due to a fingernail issue. Obviously, I feel your pain, Matt. But I also can feel the pain of this one because he apparently heard it packing his daughter's toys in her toy box. And I saw some people, and obviously they don't have kids. The people that were like, how do you get hurt packing your kids' toys in a toy box? If you have young kids that age, you know, sometimes you hate the sight of the toys just all over the place, especially if you're packing up to go back home. You're just throwing stuff. You're not looking. You're probably doing 5,000 other things. And somehow he hurt his fingernail. Should be okay for Thursday. But, Matt, I feel your pain on that one, literally and figuratively. But game action, Taijuan Walker continues to be in midseason form. 4 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 earned runs. Did have 2 strikeouts on 88 pitches. Ladies and gentlemen, there is your 5th starter with Ranger Suarez out. A minimum of 3 weeks is the last I had heard. So you got to love that. And then the other talk was the lineup, and Rob Thompson basically said that he's probably going to start the season alternating Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot, depending on the righty-lefty matchups. And honestly, I'm not sure which way to go with this. I mean, I get that baseball players are creatures of habit. They want to be comfortable. But at the same time, this team has been comfortable, and it hasn't worked out. So you don't have a lot of new faces. They kind of are running it back. And being comfortable for these guys has not worked. So maybe not switching it up on them and keeping them on their toes is a good thing. I mean, they all say they want to win. The only one I haven't said about I'll hit wherever is Trey Turner. Kyle Schwarber has said it. Bryce Harper has said it. I heard an interview with Bryson Stott was like, I don't care where I hit as long as my name's in the lineup. Trey Turner's the one guy I have not heard say, I'm all about winning. I'll hit wherever. He kind of is non-committal and hems and haws around what he's saying. And truthfully, of all the players in this lineup, he's the one that I think you need to make the most uncomfortable because what he's been doing has not been working. And miss me with he hit 295 last year. Yeah, but he also went through a long slumping stretch in the second half. He was hot at the beginning of the season and sucked the end of the season. So maybe this is, it's unconventional, but at the end of the day, what they've been doing hasn't been working, so why not? And the last thing I need from this team is for them to be too comfortable. So maybe switching it up and alternating is the way to go. But that does lead to today's question of the day. I asked a few weeks ago who should hit leadoff for the Phillies, and we had any wide variety of guys coming in. Personally, I think Bryce should be the one that hits leadoff. You look what Ohtani does for the Dodgers, that's mine. But out of Trey Turner or Kyle Schwarber, who should be hitting leadoff? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. We have the full spring training now behind us. We've seen what both guys have done. So now that we're on the cusp of the season, who should be hitting leadoff? Should it be Schwarber or Turner, or should they alternate? I mean, I don't hate that idea. And I know there's a lot of baseball people out there who will say, well, guys, get into rhythm and routines. Well, we've seen what happened the past 3 years when this team gets into rhythms and routines, and it's not good. So I personally say, why not try it? Because everybody says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Why not switch it up and try something different? I mean, and like I said, Schwarber doesn't care. At least publicly, that's what he said. Bryce Harper has said he doesn't care. I've heard Bryson Stott say he doesn't care. We've seen Castellanos hit anywhere from 2 to 8 in this lineup. So obviously he's going to go up and just swing at the first pitch anyway. Turner is the wild card in this. And you know what, Trey? Listen, you've not really showed me anything since you've been here to earn your money. So suck it up, Buttercup, and you hit where the manager puts your name in the lineup. But what do you think? Who should hit leadoff? Should it be Schwarber, Turner, or the combo of the two? All right. Everybody does these, and I figured rather than going position by position, because there really is no other than Max Kepler and Jesus Luzardo, there's not really a lot of new faces on this team. So I'm going to go with 10 bold predictions for the seasons. I'll give you 5 today, 5 tomorrow. And truthfully, I don't know how bold these are, but this is where I kind of see the season going. First one, again, not very bold, but I look for Bryce Harper to be in the MVP conversation. I look for him to really kind of press it and step up and say, listen, it's kind of a do or die season. I see him hitting 300, 30 homers, 100 RBI. But I think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. Would love for him to get a Gold Glove as well. Second bold prediction, and again, not very bold. However, I think Zach Wheeler finally wins the Cy Young. And truthfully, the way that some of these baseball writers think, Zach, for all intents and purposes, is a nice guy. He certainly has been the most consistent pitcher in Major League Baseball over the past 4 or 5 years. He's been in the top 3 in the Cy Young during that time period. Certainly had a good case last year for one. Chris Sale just had a better season than him. And I think what's going to happen if Zach Wheeler has the type of season that he's had over the past 4 or 5 years, barring like a Paul Skeens having a ridiculous season or somebody that we're not really on our radar right now having a big season, I think he'll get rewarded for his consistency and finally win the Cy Young. Number 3, I've been saying this the entire spring, and I'm going to say it. This is, again, to me, this is not that bold of a prediction. Christopher Sanchez is going to emerge as the Phillies' number 2 starter. I think he's going to push Zach Wheeler for, at times, to be the ace of this staff. I think he's going to take a huge leap this year. He was way more consistent in spring training. I followed spring training way more this year than I ever have. And just with his velocity, his pitch placement, I think Christopher Sanchez will emerge as the number 2 guy for the Phillies. And I think he's going to get a lot of votes for the Cy Young race, but I do think it's going to be Zach Wheeler's to lose this year. Number 4, again, you can say this is not so bold. I think Bryson Stott makes an all-star game. I think last year he's been very public about the injury and how it affected him mentally. I heard an interview on WIP where he talked about it impacting his swing, where sometimes he wouldn't chase pitches that he normally would to foul off and work counts because he was afraid that if he swung and missed, it was going to hurt his elbow because of that nerve injury. It seems like he's healthy, and I look for him to have a big bounce-back year and make an all-star team for the Phillies. And then finally, this might be the most bold one of the bunch for today. However, when you bring back the entire team that has come up short, there, at some point, and everybody's been talking about it this week anyway, at some point you need to look at the manager. And I fully can see this team getting off to a slower start and going into one of their slumps. Rob Thompson gets fired this year. That's my bold prediction. I think if you look at everything, he's just, for whatever reason, sure, he's a nice guy. Not saying he's not a good manager, but I think his seat should be hot, and I think this team, from top to bottom, starting with John Middleton, there's going to be a sense of urgency. So I think if they get off to a slower start and they're hanging around like third place or so by the All-Star break, would not be surprised if Rob Thompson gets fired. They bring in Kevin Long or somebody, and the change and the change, and maybe it'll piss the guys off. Who knows? But there is some history to support that. I mean, just look at this team when they fired Joe Girardi, Rob Thompson took over. They went on a run and went to the World Series. But in Phillies history, back in 1979, they fired Danny Ozark, brought in Dallas Green. The players hated Dallas Green. They talked about that in the 1980 season all the time, how much they hated him and his managerial style, and they were winning in spite of him. So you have that. And then in 1983, the Phillies fired Pat Corrales. They were kind of a lot of similarities between that 83 team and this team. A lot of older vets, maybe not as old as the 83 team was, but they fired Pat Corrales, went on a run, and went to the World Series. So that's my bold prediction. I think if things get tough, I hope it doesn't come to this, but I would not be in the least bit surprised if Rob Thompson gets fired, because there's going to be a lot of urgency with this team. And I think if they see it starting to slip, I would not be surprised if Rob Thompson is the scapegoat for the team. So there's my first 5 bold predictions for the Phillies season. Bryce Harper has an MVP-type season. Zach Wheeler finally wins his Cy Young. Christopher Sanchez emerges as the number 2 starter for the Phils, gets some Cy Young votes. Bryson Stott becomes an all-star, and Rob Thompson gets fired at some point this season. So let me know who should hit leadoff, but let me know your thoughts on my bold prediction. Am I just being an idiot? I've been called worse. But let me know your thoughts on that, and I'll have the other 5 bold predictions for the Phillies season, including their win total, tomorrow. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast, doing great things over at their Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com. Check out what they have to offer. Their podcasts are available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And then, of course, Philly Goat. I'm excited. Later this week, I'll show it and do the unveiling on the show. But my golf shirt is coming. Philly Goat has a partnership with Double Bogey Down. 3 different Philly-specific golf shirts. They're awesome. I went with the Philly Frenetic. And then, of course, get some of the shoes. Like, there's nothing like going to the golf course, slipping on your canvas loafers, put it on your golf shoes, and after the round, slipping your canvas loafers back on. Check out the canvas loafers. Check out the Double Bogey Down golf shirts. And use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right. Today, we're going to go back to 2005. And on this day in 2005, the Villanova Wildcats lost to the North Carolina Tar Heels 67-66 in the Sweet 16. Villanova had this game, probably should have won this game. They had a 4-point lead at halftime. This was the Allen Ray, Randy Foye, Kyle Lowry team. They lost the lead, got down by 11 with 4:48 left in the game, had a furious comeback, trailed it 66-63 with 9 seconds left. Allen Ray drove, took a running jumper from just inside the lane, made it, the whistle blew. Everybody thought it was an N1. And then the refs ended up calling a travel on Allen Ray. A very, very questionable travel. Nova still had a shot and made it interesting in the final 9 seconds, even though they would ultimately lose this game. Obviously, they gained respect. Jay Wright's team, it was the furthest they had been, I believe, in a while. So they went toe-to-toe with the eventual national champions. But if you go to my social media, I have 4 replays of the travel. 2 of them are in slow motion. I don't see the travel. Let me know your thoughts on that, because it looks clean to me. And at the time, I was a staunch Nova hater. So for me to say that it wasn't a travel and it should have been an N1, that's saying something. But bonus question of the day, go look at the replay of this and then let me know if you think it was a travel or should have been a basket with an N1. As much as I hate to admit it, it should have been a basket and an N1. But on this day, Villanova controversially lost to the North Carolina Tar Heels 67-66 when the refs called a travel on Allen Ray, when to me the replay shows it should have been a made basket, N1, going to tie the game up. But Nova would get their revenge on North Carolina a few years later when they beat them at the buzzer to win the national championship. And then finally today, our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. Dale Hodges from St. Joe's. She played there from 1983 to 1987, and all she did was become quite possibly the best player in St. Joe's history, and if not the best, certainly top 3. She graduated holding over 30 St. Joe's records, including points, rebounds, and blocks. To this day, she is still currently number 2 on the St. Joe's all-time list. She holds the record for most points and rebounds in a game when she graduated. She took the Hawks to 3, or helped lead the Hawks to 3 NCAA tournaments. She was a first-team All-American as a senior, 2-time Atlantic 10 and Big 5 Player of the Year. She also held, I couldn't find anything, and I will be completely honest, it is tough to find coverage, and something's got to be done about this, but it's tough to find coverage sometimes of women's basketball pre the mid-90s. So I don't know if this record still stands, but at the time of her graduation, she held the record for A10 Player of the Week awards with 8. After graduating, she went and had a career overseas. She played in the ABL. She did sign with the WNBA, but was near the tail end of her career and never did catch on with the New York team. But she did get into coaching. She coached at Arcadia and Rutgers Camden, as well as was as an assistant at UMass and Fordham, going to the tournament with Fordham, a great Fordham team actually, and then was couldn't find out if she was still there or not, but was the athletic director at the Walter Palmer Charter School in Philly and helped create both their middle school boys and girls team. But Dale Hodges, one of the best to ever do it for the Hawks, All-American, 3 NCAA tournaments, and Big 5 Hall of Famer. Dale, we salute you today as our Women's Big 5 Hall of Fame spotlight. On this day in 2005, Villanova lost to North Carolina 67-66 on a controversial travel call on Allen Ray. Like I said, go back, look at it, and tell me what you think. Unless you're a North Carolina fan, I don't think there's any way you're going to say it was a travel. I tried to get the clearest video I could of it, but even with the graininess, it's obvious it wasn't a travel. Be sure to give me your thoughts on my first 5 Phillies bold predictions, as well as who should hit leadoff. Turner, Schwarber, go with Topper's combination, and we'll see what happens. But again, I'm at the point where these guys should not be comfortable. Nobody in that organization should be comfortable right now, because where has comfortable got you? And we'll see what happens. We'll have more on the Flyers. We'll have my other 5 bold predictions tomorrow. But let me know, because like I said, I'm trying to be excited for opening day, and the whole thing's got me pissed off. Excuse me, and I don't know why. It's supposed to be spring opening day. Spring is coming, and here I am annoyed at the Phillies, and they haven't even played a game yet. Oh well. But remember, it's not how you start, and maybe this is going to be a theme for the Phillies this year. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's not too late to get back on track, as our old pal Brandon Graham said. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 25th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.